What's going on?
What's going on, Jay?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Candidates Night 2024. If you could find your seats, that would be wonderful. Say thank you for coming out. Being that it's leap year, I have to start with a leap year joke. Why do surgeons perform on leap year day? What do surgeons perform on leap day? Right, operations, you got it. Okay, great thing about leap year jokes, they only come around once every 4 years. That's right. This is our second annual for Wolfeboro Community Television to do Candidates Night, and we appreciate all of you who've come out and the candidates who have come out this evening. My name is Timothy Goodwin. I'm Executive Director for the community television station. Wolfeboro Community Television is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We rely solely on donations made by you, the general public, local businesses who are willing to underwrite our public and education programs, and the town of Wolfeboro supports our government programs here. The following local businesses have specifically underwritten tonight's program, and I want to say thank you and have you acknowledge, if you would, the Bay Diner opens 5 a.m. Till 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 7 days a week. So thank you to the Bay Diner. Louis Pizza, 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Wednesday through Monday, closed on Tuesdays. We want to say thank you to Louis Pizza. Huck's Hoagies is open from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., Monday through Saturday, closed on Sundays. Thank you to Huck's Hoagies. And the Yum Yum Shop, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., 7 days a week. We say thank you to the Yum Yum Shop. We really appreciate them and their support of Wolfeboro Community Television and these types of programs, but specifically those four for tonight's event. And now I would like to welcome to the podium the chairman of our nonprofit board of directors who oversees Wolfeboro Community Television, and he will introduce you to our moderator tonight, Mr. Brad Harriman.
Thank you. I'd like to start out by thanking all the candidates for coming in tonight, to give all the voters an opportunity to get to know you, to meet you, and to get a feel for your ideas and your thoughts. And also, as Timothy said, I'm going to introduce our moderator, Attorney Randy Walker. Randy has served as he serves as our town moderator right now. He has served as a moderator for the school district for a number of years, and for over 2 decades has been moderating this candidates night for us. So I'll turn this over to our attorney Randy Walker to let you in on how he's going to run it tonight, and have a good time, everybody.
Thank you, Brad. Again, my name's Randy Walker. I'll be moderating this event tonight. For the record, every candidate that is running for a contested election was invited to participate tonight, and most of them did come. We do have a number that did not. I have 2 statements that I'll read from 2 of the 5 that could not make it. So let me introduce the candidates that did come. As I call your name, just raise your hand, but we have incumbent Luke Freudenberg running for Selectman. We have incumbent Brian DeShays also running for Selectman. We have former Selectman Paul O'Brien running for Selectman and Jody Person running again. Those 4 are running for 2 Selectman spots, so you'll be looking to have 2. For Police Commissioner, we have incumbent Sean Coop is running for the 3-year position. He's being challenged by Richard Eaton, who could not be with us tonight. I'll read a statement from him. And then for the 1-year position, we have Catherine Dragonfly, who is here, and Kevin Duffy, who was on the commission, could not come. I'll read a statement from him. And Douglas Lamparter did not get a statement, but he is not here this evening. And then for the school board, we have incumbent Mary Schilleriff. She's being challenged by Wesley Smallage. She is not here this evening. And then from Tuftonboro, we have Jack Widmer, who's the incumbent and chairman of the school board, and we have Guy Pike, who is challenging him. For those of you that are unfamiliar with the school district, we have 9 total school board members, 6 from each one of the school district towns: Brookfield, Effingham, New Durham, Tuftonboro, Ospey, and Wolfeboro. And then we have 3 at-large positions. Mary is running for one of those at-large positions, and Jack and Guy are running for the Tuftonboro position. Even though they're both from Tuftonboro and we are in Wolfeboro, we vote for all the representatives in all the towns. So that's why they're here this evening. We also have Elizabeth Schechter here, who is the New Durham candidate, but she is not up on the podium because she's not in a contested election. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is basically to introduce you to the candidates and have them tell you a little bit about themselves and their positions on various issues. And I'd like to thank all of you for expressing an interest in running, and for those of you that are already serving, for your interest in continuing to serve. This event is being... Sorry, 1 year. We have, yes, so Sean and Rick Eaton are running for the 3-year position. The other 3 are running for a 1-year position. And so this event is being televised, and if anybody wants to say anything, which will be you guys up here, please speak into the microphones because we cannot hear what this gentleman just asked me. For those of you that have cell phones, this would be a great time to take them out, make sure that they're on off or silent. And then for the format for tonight, we'll start off by giving each candidate a minute or two to tell us a little bit about themselves and any issues that they feel passionate about. 2, this is not a debate. We're here tonight, hopefully, to engage in a civil, neighborly, collegial exchange of ideas, hopefully highlighting some differences between the candidates so that you can decide which ones you want to vote for and which ones you do not. I generally address all questions to all candidates in that particular group so that we don't play favorites either for or against. And if any candidate would like to comment on what another candidate says, just raise your hand. We'll try to get back to you. And if you have a counterpoint or something you'd like to say, please keep it brief because we have a lot of ground to cover tonight. At about 7:45, I'll wrap things up and we'll give each one of the candidates a minute or two, and you can do the math. If they each take 2 minutes, that will take us to about 8 o'clock when we're supposed to go off the air. We could push it a little bit past that, but that's the goal. If any of you have questions, I have been handed a number of questions. If we can get to them, I will definitely try. So if you do have them, reduce them to writing, bring them up. There's pens and paper that are out there. So if we could start off with Luke, who's on the end. We'll go right down the line. If you could spend a minute or two telling us why we should elect you for selectman, et cetera.
Thank you, Randy, and thank you, Wolfeboro Community TV, for putting this on, and thank you for the members of the public that are here and that are watching it on Wolfeboro Community TV. It's good to see so many people come out and be really interested in this election. And I'll acknowledge the 3 to my left would all, Paul, Jody, and Brian, would all make excellent selectmen. I've spent the better part of a decade, it's now been 9 years between my first run for selectman back in 2015, and then having served on zoning board in the interim between my first election and the election the term I'm currently serving in. And it truly has been an honor and a privilege to work with many members in the Wolfeboro community, other boards, residents, and to assist the Wolfeboro taxpayers and really work on their behalf. We moved here, my parents moved here in 1986, and we moved to Port Wedland Road, and for the last, for many of those years, other than 5 years, going to grad school and a couple of years working for the federal government down in DC, I've been a Wolfeboro resident for the majority of those other years. So for 30 plus years, I've been here in Wolfeboro and, enjoyed growing up here. I run and have owned 5 successful businesses in Wolfeboro that employ, total of probably about 30 employees. And it's been a great opportunity to really live in a place where I also enjoy to play. The Lakes region is because of this Lake Winnipesaukee, that we are able to enjoy so many privileges that other people don't have elsewhere in the state. I look forward to tonight's questions, and I'm asking for your vote again. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. Paul?
I have to learn how to shut my phone off. I apologize. My name is Paul O'Brien. I've lived in town for 14 years. I love this town. And from my perspective, from being an outsider to Wolfeboro is the opportunity to do some great discovery. I've served in a lot of different capacities. I've been a member of the planning board. I've been a member of the board of selectmen. I'm currently on the budget committee. I absolutely had a blast being a member of the board of selectmen from the period 2018 through 2021. I had to take an opportunity to leave the board and not run for re-election because I had personal matters, and I missed it. And I spent time in faraway places watching Wolfeboro Community Television on YouTube and watching Board of Select people and Planning Board and others deliberate things. I'm a backgrounded business person. I make no apologies or excuses about it. It's kind of who I am. I like getting things done. I don't believe in yelling at people, but I can get pretty much in your face. Not yours, but I can get pretty much into things. I believe that we have and I've said this a million times, so it's not new news. I believe that we have an incredible amount of information about how we run this town. We really do. We can tell you anything about this town. How many people visited whatever. We just know that stuff. The question isn't how we do budgets. The question for all of us always is, how do we set priorities? That's really what's important. And so tonight, I hope, at least you'll hear from me, how I approach making or taking decisions on things that need to be done. Because I think if we understand how we go about, if you have children, you always say, how did you ever come up with that idea? If you take the time to understand how we go about making decisions, then you'll understand how we set priorities, and then you'll understand how budgets get constructed. So I look forward to a good discussion. And I hope I can win your vote when you go to the ballot box in a short order. So thank you.
And thank you, Paul. Jody?
Yeah, my name is Jody Person. I'm running again. This is my 4th year running now. I've lived in Wolfeboro for about 18 years. I've owned several businesses in town. I started an auto repair shop with my son on Bay Street, him and his fiance now run. I still work there part-time. So I've been here for 18 years, and I've spent a lot of those years just, going around town and listening to everybody complain about things with the town. And I would probably be one of those that always did, would sit around the shop and we talk about, why this, why that, but nobody really wanted to come forward and take action on that. So a few years ago, I decided I'd start to ease my way into the town, politics and learn some stuff. I did get a seat on the ZBA non-contested this year, so I'm pretty excited about that. I look forward to learning that whole aspect of that with Suzanne and Sarah and everybody else on that board. I'm really looking forward to learn that, and that's about it. Thanks.
Brian?
So I'm Brian DeShays. I raised my family in this town, my wife and I. A lot of you know my children, Brody in particular. And I've spent the last 3 years as a select board member doing a lot of wonderful things and being very, very passionate about the town. When I ran last time, I talked about transparency, accessibility, supporting businesses in town, and saving taxpayer dollars. And I'm going to touch on each one of those very, very quickly. Transparency. We had a budget freeze in town, And I was the select board member that pushed and said, we will put out a statement to explain to the citizens in Wolfeboro why we have a budget freeze. And I thought it was very important, and I think that everything the town does should be transparent to the citizens. Accessibility. I am the only select board member that has both my cell phone, my private cell phone, and my phone number. Linda just added her phone number too. So I have complete accessibility from 6 in the morning until midnight. Anybody calls me, texts me, email me, I will answer. And I take everybody's concern as serious as every other concern. I do not prioritize somebody's questions. I said I would support businesses. Well, one thing that I was lucky enough to do was create Lake Winnipesaukee Day. And Lake Winnipesaukee Day, according to our Stu Chase, our former police chief, he said we brought in 15,000 people to the town docks. It was a community event, not a tourist event. It was an event that supported the community, the businesses, and was a really wonderful thing for the citizens of town. And saving money, I can give you one quick example. The bell tower on this roof, the clock tower, it was broken for about 8 or 9 months. Slate tiles had fallen off of it. We had sawhorses beside and caution tape. The town manager and our planner couldn't find a contractor. I happened to have an idea pop in my head, and I contacted the Castle McLeods and found out who fixes your roofs. They connected me with a gentleman. I had him come to the town. He looked at the roofs. I had a local gentleman, Gunner Found, take drone pictures to be able to see the problems with the roof. We had gotten a quote from only one contractor when we put it out to bid for $200,000. This gentleman needed to get up to the roof. I said, we can use our new fire truck, good use for our fire truck. He fixed our roof after 10 months, $12,000. $188,000 savings for the town by doing a little bit of hard, old-fashioned New England work. So I want to keep doing that for the next 3 years. I am here for every citizen in this town. And as I said, find my cell phone right on the town website. I'm here for you, for every one of you.
Thank you, Brian. Moving on to the Police Commission. Start off with you, Sean.
Thanks, Randy. I'd like to, first of all, thank everyone for being here. I really appreciate that. My name is Sean Coop. I'm a resident of Wolfeboro, of course, and I live in town with my wife, Janine, and our 2 boys, Brent and Mitchell. I'm a small business owner in town, and I like to describe myself as a lifelong public servant, certainly in my whole adult life. I was hired as a police officer in the town in Rockingham County at the age of 21, 1986, and ultimately retired from that town in 2009. Along the way, I served as patrol officer, sergeant, detective, head of detectives, district court prosecutor, lieutenant, acting chief of police. Upon my retirement in 2009, I was hired part-time by the U.S. Marshal Service at the District of New Hampshire, served there for 2 years. During that time, I was approached by the Assistant Commissioner of Safety for the state of New Hampshire and asked if I'd be willing to take one of 2 slots as a terrorism liaison officer between the state of New Hampshire and the Department of Homeland Security. It was a pilot program, and I completed that in 2 years. So basically, I had Concord North, so I was a liaison for terrorism, terrorism subject matters between the chiefs of police and the federal government. The last 3 years, I just completed my first term as one of your 3 police commissioners. I'm currently serve as your chairman. And I've enjoyed that time very much. It's just an extension of my public service commitment to the town. And I think that, you know, the state of New Hampshire, if I look back at it, I've never added it up, but it certainly has a lot of money invested in my training and any officer like me that's been in the business for so long. So it's nice to give some of that back, even in post-retirement.
Catherine?
My name is Catherine Dragonfly, and my family's lived in Wolfeboro for 110 years now. I am a 4th-generation business owner in this town. I was an antiques dealer and certified appraiser. I'm recently retired. A lot of people have known me in different roles when I was single or married for 25 years. I have 2 sons, Sterling and Emerson Sykes. I have owned many different properties in town, both commercial and private. I have a very simple platform. We have 1 woman on the police force, and we have about 15 men. We had, up until this year, hopefully, we had 3 men on the police commission. And I think that's time to change. I think women need to be honored more because no one would be here without a woman. And I think the LGBTQ community has recently been damaged by our ex-chief, and I think it's time to start honoring different people. I hope I am one of those women who can stand up and be a representative for the town.
All right, thank you. I'm going to read 2 statements from 2 of the police commissioners that could not come, and then we'll get to the school board. So the first letter is from Rick Eaton. Good evening, and thank you for attending Candidates Night in Wolfeboro. My name is Rick Eaton, and I'm running for the 3-year term of the Wolfeboro Police Commission. I apologize for my absence, but I'm out of town on a pre-planned trip that was arranged prior to my decision to run for this position. Now, a little about me. I've served on the planning board as well as having been a volunteer on the volunteer fire department. I have owned and run a local construction business as well as being a commercial airline pilot. These positions have given me over 40 years of management experience that I believe can be carried over and applied to the Wolfeboro Police Commission. The police department and current commission have endured a few rough patches over the last couple of years, but with a change in direction can emerge to be a much stronger department that the town can be proud of, one that I hope I can be part of. We've already begun this transition with the appointment of a new chief. Chief Warren was sworn in a little over 3 weeks ago, and after having a chance to sit down and chat with the new chief, I believe he has the same goals of righting the ship and getting things back on track that I have. I strongly believe, though, that this is more than a one-man task and will take the entire department along with the police commission to accomplish these goals. I believe this will require some new faces in the department along with the new chief, and therefore would like to ask that you consider helping me by voting on March 12th. I look forward to seeing each and every one of you at the polls. Thank you, Rick Eaton. The second's a letter from Kevin Duffy, who sits on the commission right now. He starts off, "Good people of Wolfeboro. I truly wish I could be seated before you tonight, but I'm traveling abroad with my wife on a previously scheduled trip. My name is Kevin Duffy. I'm running for the position of Wolfeboro Police Commission. I'm a candidate because I want what every other citizen, good citizen in the community wants. A professional, transparent police organization that fairly and impartially enforces New Hampshire state law and Wolfeboro town ordinances. I'm uniquely qualified for this position partly because of my professional law enforcement experience, which included holding every rank at the New Hampshire State Police Troop E Barracks in Tamworth. In the short time that I've been on the police commission, I've recognized that it helps to have law enforcement experience. Still, it's important to have executive law enforcement experience because of the nature of the matters the commission deals with. My experience as a troop commander and the experience I gained at the FBI National Academy in Quantico, Virginia, has already been a benefit to this community. Experience is only half of the equation for success as a police commissioner, in my opinion. The other half is dedication. I'm not just saying that you're dedicated. Dedication through selfless service may be the difference between my competitors and me. I've raised my right hand twice in different professions and swore to uphold the values rooted in the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of New Hampshire. My selfless service to this country as a United States Army officer set my professional work foundation on solid ground. That foundation grew into a 23-year career with the New Hampshire State Police. I'm bringing dedicated, selfless service to this community by running for the Wolfeboro Police Commission. If you are looking for a candidate who will ensure your police department is professional, transparent, and holds every police employee accountable to the law enforcement mission of the town of Wolfeboro, please consider voting for me. If you are interested in taking advantage of my experience and selfless service to this community, please consider, again, voting for me. If you want what every good citizen in the community wants in their police department, please consider voting for Kevin Duffy, Wolfeboro Police Commission, on March 12th. So now we'll move on to Mary for the school board.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for this opportunity to express my intentions should I be reelected to the school board, this time for a 3-year term. I am a retired educator with K through 12 experience. If you want to know any more, I could wax on about that. I'm grateful for the trust that you had in me to not only walk the walk, but not just talk the talk. In this past 1 year, I visited every school more than once. I was welcomed and invited to return anytime, which I did. Because anytime you visit any of the schools in the Governor Wentworth Regional School District, you will be welcomed by smiling faces, shining floors, maybe shiny faces and also shiny floors. You are an active engagement, business as in the business of school, the students applying, answering, and questioning. Pardon me? And you will encounter custodians who, like painting the Golden Gate Bridge, they never stop, including at the school's nightly games, theater, extensions with clubs, dance competitions, poetry, and speech. Indeed, one principal expressed that our schools, our community centers, nearly every afternoon, night, and weekends, when you drive by the high school, something community-based is happening. So they are indeed community centers. They are innovative and respond to a very exacting world of technology, such as the Lakes Region Technology Center, with the addition of marine technologies in collaboration with Goodhue Hawkins, and the breadth of applied technologies, not only in our state and region, but beyond. And finally, I would like to connect my intentions as informed by my involvement with ham radio. Communication is exceedingly important in ham radio. Matter of fact, my new friend John, K1 UAF, Kilo 1 Uniform Alpha Foxtrot, says, he makes the point, communication to be effective needs to be accurate, brief, and clear. That ground truth is the essence of communication to be reliable and valid. In amateur radio and in life, the mantra is, if you are talking, you aren't listening. And I listen. So thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate the time you took out of your lives to come here tonight.
Thank you, Mary. Jack?
Thank you. My name is Jack Widmer, and I've been a resident of New Hampshire since 1973, and I've been a resident of Tuftonboro since 1988. I was first appointed to the school board in 1993, and except for about a 3-month break in 1995, I've been on the board since. So during that roughly 30 years on the board, I served as board chair for 16 of those years. I've also served as a team leader for the Finance Committee for the last 20 to 25 years. The Finance Committee's responsibility, obviously, is to present the budget each year to the taxpayers, which we do at the deliberative session a couple of times before that as well. And I've also served as a team leader for the Human Resources Committee for the last 25 years. Human Resources, our primary function in Human Resources is to develop our contracts for our three unions. We have a teachers union, support staff union, and our administrative union. I'm running for re-election because we have a lot of very exciting new things coming up over the next few years. We have a brand new strategic plan that we're putting in place for the next 5 years. The 4 main focus areas are increasing academic achievement, creating a culture of belonging, improving parent, family, community communications and engagement, and student wellness and nutrition security. This process started last August with the school board and administrators meeting with a facilitator to get a direction of where the school district is going to head. After we finished that process, a strategic plan committee was formed with 4 school board members, administrators, teachers, and parents, and student representatives as well, to develop this plan. So it's a very exciting plan moving forward, and really excited to be part of that process. I really want to run again because we have not only the strategic plan coming up, but over the next couple of years, we do have all 3 of our union contracts up for negotiations. And since I've been on that board and we have a great relationship with our staff members, I want to be part of that process to be able to bring a good, solid contract to each one that's good for the staff and also affordable to the taxpayers. So again, I thank you for being here tonight and giving us the opportunity to present our positions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Guy.
Yes, Guy Pike. My parents brought me home from Huggins to Tuftonboro in 1954. Been there ever since, except for my military service. Graduated from Kingswood. Had a lot of fun being a doubles tennis partner with Brad Harriman. Brad. I attended Maine Maritime Academy, Navy Nuclear Power School, and then I served my time in the United States Submarine Service. Currently, I'm chairman of the Board of Selectmen in Tuftonboro. My term is up after town meeting, so I'll have a lot of time on my hands. I had noticed in the last couple of years a terrible, a groundswell of dissatisfaction with the school system and the school board from parents and taxpayers. I started digging into that. I've heard their concerns. And I put out on social media a call out to the educators, and I made it possible for them to respond to me anonymously. I wanted to know what their concerns were and what the board could do to help them in their jobs. I got one response, and I don't know what to make of that. But I'm thinking that maybe a fresh set of eyes and a good communicator and somebody that's willing to dig a little bit and help get information out can reestablish a relationship between the taxpayers, the parents, the schools, and the school board. My basic motto is rewind forward. Let's get way back to the basics. I've had too much experience with high school graduates who can't read a tape measure. Thank you.
All right, so we'll start off with the questions, and I noticed that Brian mentioned the word transparency, Kevin Duffy mentioned the word transparency, and I was actually handed a question, or was given a question today, which I'll ask of the Police Commission. So we'll start off with you. Sean, I'll start with you. It's a sort of a 4-point comment, but the theme is transparency on the Police Commission. And the first part of it was the police chief position publicly posted? 2, is the police chief required to live in Wolfeboro? 3, was the MRI report is either not been published or it was heavily redacted, and should it be published? And then 4, the police force appears to operate as an old boys network or secret society. How would you make it more transparent? So that's a handful for the first question, but jump in, and then Kathy, we'll get to you on the back.
Thanks, Randy. So I've heard that question before with my fellow commissioners and myself over the last, 2 to 3 months. And if you look at it from afar, the police commission operates exactly the same way as the Board of Selectmen, as the planning board, as the zoning board. We have open meetings that they are publicized, and when they are, the third Thursday of every month. The public is welcome, and it is put on the TV so everybody can see it. So we do the exact same things to make sure transparency is obvious as all the other committees in town. Our policies are exactly the same. Anyone's welcome to come, as I said. Anyone's welcome to bring forward a concern. We're more than happy to listen about that at any time. And we advocate that. But unfortunately, very few people show up ever. I feel a little neglected sometimes. We have, Bernie back there shows up every meeting. I'm not sure he's missed too many in, years. And our representative for the Budget Committee, who's here sitting right in front of me, he shows up every meeting. And that's about it. We really don't get too many folks showing up. In reference to the chief, RSA 105 gives the commission the authority to appoint personnel. And that's what we do. And that's the authority that was also given to us by vote by all of you. And so in this, it was our initial plan to offer the position of police chief in this last hiring, both in-house to folks that are qualified in-house, i.e. they already work for the agency, and also posted outside. It was even our thought to, to add transparency, to put a board together, volunteers, local citizens who would like to sit on the board to hire a new chief. Things were a little unusual recently where we had a chief retire that forced us very quickly to bring in somebody that we thought was appropriate at the time based on the inner workings of the agency, based on our professional experience. And Stu Chase made himself available. That was a godsend. We took advantage of that. We would have been crazy not to. And he did exactly what we asked him to do and what we expected him to do. He was the right person at the right time. In concert with that, we had Chris Warren, who was already working for the agency. And he was has been working for the agency for a while, part-time, is our accreditation person. So he's in charge of preparing the agency for accreditation. Over the last close to a year now, he's reworked our policy manual, which is this thick, if I put it on the desk, preparing us for accreditation. He's done a fantastic job at that. We're very pleased. It's a lot of work. It's hard work, and it'll pay off in the end. So having Chris available is something we had to take advantage of. If any of you have read his resume in the paper when we appointed him, it's very impressive. Years as police chief, 18 years, I believe, as an adjunct professor of criminal justice-related subject matters up at Plymouth State. Teaches multiple classes at the State Police Academy, and is someone that law enforcement statewide go to for advice on a variety of issues. He's the right man for the job this time, and we're very lucky to have him. And I think the third question was, Randy?
So the third one was the MRI report. Was that published? It was heavily redacted, if it was, is what the questioner is telling me, and that the police forces operate a little bit as a old boys network, secret society. How do we make it more transparent? And your time's pretty much up, so wrap it up.
Sure. So the MRI report, when a complaint came in against the chief, we obviously had a responsibility. We took an oath, and we had to act on that. And so immediately we did. We seek the advice of town council, and it was on his advice that he hire MRI to complete an internal review or review of that situation. MRI is not a law enforcement agency, so they don't do investigations per se. They do reviews, and they completed that, and that was we were asked to release that via 91A, and of course there's a lot of personnel related subject matters within that report that we cannot release under the law. And so naturally, to protect everybody involved, we presented that back to town council, and he did the redactation. He's the one that redacted the information on that report. And at that point, it was put forward and published in the newspaper. And as far as the good old boys network, that's such a myth within law enforcement. I'm not sure if there's an industry in the world that's more regulated than United States law enforcement. If you think about it, they have state laws that guide what.
And you're wrapping it up.
Yeah, what police departments do. They have state laws, they have federal laws, they have case law, they get procedures within the department. There's a litany of things that control what a police department does. Kevin Duffy and I and Steve Woods have talked numerous times, about, transparency. And, we feel confident we do exactly what every other board here does. And we will continue to do that going forward. Everyone has a right to be there. The only things that, if we go into non-public session, we do that under the law, mostly on personnel-related issues or pending litigation, or one of those things that allow us to do that.
Kathy?
Transparency is one of my notes here. I do think that many people think that it is a brotherhood, including myself. I filed a right to know document a little while ago and just got answers this afternoon. If anybody hasn't seen the MRI report, I have copies of it. I think most everybody on Facebook has copies of it by now. There was a follow-up report that nobody seems to have. One of my biggest reasons for running is the budget oversight, because I think if we can afford a $13 million addition to the police station, we should certainly be able to afford $30,000 to $50,000 for cameras, for body cams. And if we had body cams, none of this would have happened with Chief Rondo. I personally have had problems with Chief Rondo through the years. And even though it's redacted, it's pretty easy to see through. And that, again, comes back to my platform that we need more women representation in town, and we need more representation for the LGBTQ population. Any other questions?
No, that's fine, thank you. So why don't we move on to the Selectmen, and I'll start with Article 4, which is the Port Wetland drainage. That's the only bond that we have to vote on this year. And last year, voters approved about $430,000 to work on that project. This year, the board is coming back asking for another $769,000 for a total of $1.2 million. It's the third largest warrant article we have. Are you in favor of that warrant article, and why? And why don't we start with Brian, and we'll go down this way.
Okay, so this is a warrant article that is parlayed on top of last year's warrant article. As Randy said, we appropriated $430,000 in order to fix the drainage on a town road that goes down to the Port Wetland Association. Now let's understand this. This is a town neighborhood with town roads. The water comes down the road and gets to the association, washes out their beach, and we have a lot of sediment and runoff getting into Winter Harbor. Winter Harbor has had a cyanobacteria problem over the last few years. So we need to keep all the sediment and all the phosphorus and all the other elements out of Winter Harbor. So, with that being said, we had a design that we found out after the storms last summer was underbuilt. So we had to have a second set of designs done for the plan. We came up with a project now that is up to over $1 million. It is now going to be significant enough to handle a 10-year storm instead of a 1-year storm. What we need to do is we need to make sure that the information that was agreed upon in our last warrant article follows through with this one. So we have stipulations on it that the $100,000 that was promised in last year's warrant article needs to be in hand, and all easements need to be in place from the Port Wetland Association before we put a shovel in the ground. We have to make sure that if this project goes forward, that we are not putting an extra $100,000 on the taxpayers. We will not be doing any corrective measures on any Port Wetland Association properties. We will only be doing what is the town's responsibility. There are other locations in Winter Harbor and in the lake that have issues with this kind of runoff, and we have to tackle them one at a time going forward.
Jody?
This article, I'd like to explain something here. This is the way this should be done in this town when it comes to a project. I'm happy that it hasn't been rushed into, and let me explain myself with this. The first designs were for smaller culverts and everything, and if we had to rush this project through, it would have been a complete waste of money because it would not be able to handle the water flow. So when I say I like the way this article has been done, it took the time to really think about it and slow down, and they've been working towards this. So now they've gone with bigger culverts and step downs I guess what I'm saying is I'd like to see every article be approached like this. I am a fisherman in town. I bass fish a lot, and I've been down in the pouring rain, and I can see that shore, get the runoff and turn the water brackish right away. It's a lot of money, and I can honestly tell you that I haven't made up my mind yet if I'm going to be for this or against it. But that's what I'd like to say is I really like the way that things were slowed down on this project and thought about. So,
Paul?
Thanks, Randy. So it was when I first became a member of the Select Board, Labor Day weekend, I'm on Cary Beach with Susan and her granddaughter. WMUR pulls up, and they were taking photographs of the beach, and I said, oh my gosh, you must be celebrating the end of summer. And the person said, no, there's a cyanobacteria outbreak on your beach. And I lost it because I didn't know what that stuff was. Yes, it's around. And yes, we have a Wolfeboro Waters Committee that I co-founded, so you can kind of get a sense of where I'm going with this. We under-designed this Port Wetland project. It gets back to a conversation we just had a few minutes ago about paying attention to stuff. It's not a criticism. It's not meant to find fault. It's just meant to say, how do we make decisions about how we build stuff? How do we make sure we put two sets of eyes on important things? That's one of the things we did when I was a select board member. If it was important, we had two select board members worrying about things. And I liked that process. Now to the project itself. We literally are shooting water down the road, and it goes across the beach, and it wipes out the beach, and it heads out to the lake. Have we quantified how much potential pollutants, bad stuff, bugs, and all are going in? I don't know. I don't think we have. But I'll bet you a nickel it's probably not a good report if you were to go pull one, because roads have tar and gas and all that nasty stuff. I haven't read the agreement that said there was a financial commitment, a contract, a writing between the parties at the bottom of the hill and the lake. And I do know that there are some members of the board that say unless that 100 grand is in hand, we should do it. I'm not sure. I'd love to have the $100,000, and I hope to goodness they give it to us. But I don't want to sit there and not do it and then have them come to us and say, you have wrecked our beach. Let's go down to Concord and have a court session and have a chat about it. So I'm doing a risk mitigation in my mind, and I say to myself, is $100,000 going to get in the way of potentially dealing with a really nasty water situation? My advice to this board would be, push hard to get the $100,000. Don't yell at people. Don't do drama. Don't do any of that stuff. But move forward and learn from the lesson that we probably should have had two sets of eyes on this thing a year ago. I'm not trying to pick a fight with anybody. Just do it. And by the way, $100,000 is a percent of our total budget. I know you're going to not like this, but it's a small number. But there's a big impact that I think we have to worry about. So I'll be in favor of it.
Luke?
I think at the deliberative session, I called this one of the most important articles that I think is before us this election. As somebody who works on the lake and has worked on the lake for the last 20 years in marine construction, I can tell you the ecology of the lake is dramatically changing. And we have an obligation as stewards and as people, as citizens of Wolfeboro, to protect that vital resource. This project, if you look at the topography of the entire area, it's not just Port Wetland that drains the water down. It comes all the way from Main Street and above. If you look at the land, how it kind of draws down, all that water is coming off Main Street and then ending up down. And this, just to be clear, too, this isn't about their beach. Their beach is, that's their issue. This is about the drainage that comes down through that public road, down a dramatic hill, and ends up coming out of a large culvert being drained directly into the lake. It picks up sand, silt, all those items on the way down. And as everyone knows, we had one of the rainiest years on record. And it doesn't seem like anything is going to be getting better in the near future when it comes to the amount of rain that we're seeing. We have water issues all over town, that we are dealing with. But the lake is such a resource to us. If that lake wasn't there, if that lake there are lakes out in New York and that are seeing areas where they can't even go in the water anymore. We're catching this hopefully at the point where we can make dramatic changes. This is just one of those projects. We have issues elsewhere with water and water resources, and the Wolfeboro Waters is a committee that is looking real hard, and we have some dedicated individuals that are really studying, what's happening in the lake, what the bacteria blooms look like during the summer, and they're a dedicated group. And this is one of the issues they identified as crucial to the town of Wolfeboro, and that's why I support it, and I hope you vote for it.
All right, thank you, Luke. We'll move on to the school board. Every year, we are asked to vote on the Turf Capital Reserve Fund. It's only $60,000. The school board does not bury it in the budget, but we vote on it separately. And this year, a voter at the deliberative session said that the artificial turf was potentially causing health issues to our students, and that some studies had shown that the artificial turf was dangerous. Others said that studies had been looked at and it wasn't as bad as that. So what's your position on the Capital Reserve Fund? Is this something you support, something we should look at? We've been doing it for years and years and years, but every year we're asked to vote on it. Was there any change of position at all? So why don't we start off with you, Guy, and we'll come back this way.
Actually, I'm a great proponent of capital reserve funds. I think it really helps when you don't have to take a giant hit all in one year. I was raised to save until I had enough money to buy what I wanted. Obviously, houses and sometimes, especially vehicles these days, not as easy to do, but I think it's a great way to be prepared for the time when the money actually has to be spent.
Jack?
Yeah, I'm very much in favor of the Capital Reserve Fund as well. We've been putting away $60,000 a year from the undesignated reserve balance. It's not new tax money, it's tax money that's already been collected. And the life expectancy of the turf field was roughly 12 years. And at $60,000 a year, we'd have enough money to pay for that. With the excellent maintenance that's been done on the turf field, it looks like we'll have about 15 years life expectancy on that field instead of 12. And if we put this money away, we'll still have enough money to not have to go back to the taxpayers and ask for additional funding. As far as the health issues, there's been a ton of studies done out. There's alternative products that could be used that are about 3 or 4 times more expensive. The turf field replacement will be around $760,000, which we'll have in the fund to pay for when that is necessary. So I'm very much in favor of continuing the Capital Reserve Fund.
It's pretty difficult to add anything to that. I do concur. I am very concerned about the health concerns of any artificial products, not only that which would be on the turf and all the students who play sports there, but looking at the quality of the water that the children are eating, issues related to their health. I am in support of the Capital Reserve. I would encourage, however, as we move forward, that we become increasingly diligent to, I thought somebody said something, sorry, increasingly diligent into alternatives, and I can attest that for sure we are doing that as a board, and we do rely heavily on the community to give us that kind of information. But I'm also very aware of the fact that budget is a concern. So having to balance this out, I don't think it should be done on the backs of the health of the children. But the initial question, I do agree with the Capital Reserve Fund. Thank you.
All right, so this will be a question for the school board again, as well as the selectmen. It deals with the school resource officer. We have had one for a number of years. Last year, we added a second one. So the question is, should we have school resource officers in the school? And if so, how many should we have, and who should pay for them? The school warrant article, I think Article 6, has $50,000 allocated for, I believe, 50% of the salary of a school officer, and Wolfeboro main budget, I think, has the other 50%. So the question is, should the town pay 50% of that, or should the school district pay for all of it? So what's your position on those two things? And if we could, why don't we start at Mary, go that way, and then pick up with Brian and come down.
So I'm happy to respond to that. When I was teaching was the beginning of the school resource officers in our building, and at first I was like, this is elementary school, I'm not particularly comfortable with a suited officer with those, whatever a person would need, knowing that they might be called out into the community. And it was very difficult on the part of that officer because, I think of police as peace officers. I think of in kindergarten, first, second, third grade, when we start talking about firemen and Mr. Rogers, or look for the helpers. So it's a challenge to think in terms of what is the function of the police officer there, and it puts a burden, I think, on that officer as a human. What I do know about the participation of them in the Governor Wentworth Regional School District, I was there at the deliberative session when the discussion for the second officer, and I listened intently on the proposal being that it's the presence of that person and the addition of that person, how that person would be vetted for that role, was a great deal of involvement on the part of parents, counselors, folks in the school, teachers, and that sort of thing. So it's not just about catching kids. And we do get regular reports from those officers. The fact there's a female is, I think, very important. I can attest that with the reports that are coming back, there's a great deal of interaction that's very positive. So as far as how it's funded, I brought this because it's my dad's. He said follow up, follow up, follow up. And so I do think we need to follow up. We continue to get that information. If it's working in meeting its need, then we keeping on with it. But as far as budget, Dad would say you get what you pay for.
Jack?
Okay, yeah, we have two resource officers now. Up until last year, we had one. The second officer, last year's budget warrant article was for a one-year position. We thought after this first year that we'd include it in the standard budget this year. We decided not to. We decided to have a separate warrant article for the second resource officer again this year because we felt we didn't have enough information for the short period of time between September and the time of election now to collect the data that we are getting from the police commission on the different reports that we're getting. And I think the one thing to remember, the resource officers are not just a police officer in the building. They create relationships between the students, and the students use the resource officers for a lot more than just discipline. They go to them for personal issues and that's what some of these reports are. Again, they're all private reports, obviously, but reports that we get to see on how the resource officers are actually spending their time. The second resource officer is basically based in the middle school. One resource officer cannot handle all of the students in the high school and the middle school combined. So I'm very much in favor of the resource officers. And as far as paying for it, the resource officers are members of the Wolfeboro Police Force. During the off-school times that they work for the Wolfeboro Police Department, not the school district. So during the summer months and vacation weeks and all, when they're not in the building, they are employed by the Wolfeboro Police Department. So I think the 50-50 split right now seems to make sense.
And Guy?
Yeah, 50-50 does make sense to me, but I'm thinking, why don't all the schools in the district have a resource officer?
Well, if I can follow up on that.
I'd like him to, please.
You got the floor. Guy has the floor.
I'd like to have Jack answer that question because I couldn't tell you.
If you're willing to give up some time, Jack, go ahead.
Okay, there's been some comments about, why don't we have resource officers in all of our elementary schools as well? First of all, if you look at some of these smaller towns around the district, Ospey, for one, has a much smaller police force to be able to dedicate an officer to that particular school. Tuftonboro only has 100 students in the building. Effingham has about a little over 100 students in the building. They also have much smaller police forces. So Tuftonboro now, I think, we're down to 2 officers because we just had our police chief retire. And I'm not sure exactly how many officers are in Effingham. So to have a full-time resource officer in the elementary schools is not an efficient way of using the police force. However, the relationships that we're building with the individual police forces from the SAU office, bringing all of these police departments together in safety meetings a couple of times a year, are helping to create that atmosphere of police are friendly, they're there in town, they're there to help, but to have them in the elementary schools is not practical at this point.
You have any quick follow-up, Guy?
No, that answers my question, and I hope it answers everybody else's as well.
All right.
I'm for the 50-50.
Brian?
All right, so here's transparency. Let's change this up a little bit. We had a part-time resource officer that was going between the Carpenter School and the Crescent Lake School. A lot of people don't realize that. Then we had the warrant article to get the second resource officer for the middle school. So we did have a high school and middle school, and at one time we had one that was part-time going between Carpenter and Crescent Lake. That gentleman retired, so now we have the 2 resource officers. I think that the formula right now to split the cost works, and I like having the 2 resource officers in the middle school and high school. Elementary level, that may come in the future, but for right now, I think we're okay. What I would like to see is maybe to have, the resource officers are stretched. They are now working in a manner that is really, really well. They are supporting the kids, they are there for the kids, they are interacting with them, they are having lunch with them, they're doing a whole lot of things that I hear at the police commission that Sean couldn't even tell us more about. But I would like to see if we could have a school psychologist in our middle school, high school. I think that would be as advantageous as an SRO officer for kids to have somebody to go to when they really have something that they don't think they want to bring a law enforcement officer to talk about. But I think that our resource officers are working. I think they're doing a great job. I hear fantastic things from the police department, from the schools, from the kids. But that's my take on it.
Jody?
Yeah, when I campaigned last year, one of my things I really pushed on people was how important it was to get that extra resource officer for the high school and the other school up there. And I'm a little disappointed that this year we lost the one at Carpenter School. You know, the departments were asked to make cuts. And unfortunately, that resource officer got cut from Carpenter School, and I'd really like to try to do something to get that back. A resource officer is not only there for protection, but is definitely there for a role model and to, you know, point the kids in the right direction. And I would have to say that in my younger days and in my teenage years, if the officers didn't help me out and point me in a better direction in life, I probably wouldn't be up here running for selectman right now. So when I talk about the police officers in town and the children in town, those are two very important things, and that's about all I'd like to say.
Paul?
Thank you, Randy. This is a contrast as to how I approach decision-making. I believe that the role of the Board of Select People is to work with the town manager and all the parties, set the strategy of the town, and figure out how to make investments. Having said that, I coined a phrase a long time ago that we want to keep this town safe, clean, and family-friendly. Anything that doesn't fit in those 3 buckets, we got to take a hard look at. Safety is the #1 important thing. Fire, police, and maybe the decision on ambulance service, I put right at the top of the list. It's a nuclear requirement. You got to be Top Gun. You got to be the best. Anything that gets in the way of being the best, you got to move it out of the way. Having said that, I have no idea whether we need one, two, whether we need a student psychologist. I have no idea. I would give that as a challenge to the leadership of the school and to the police department to figure it out. And I would bring them back and say, let's thrash on this. I think trying to figure out who pays and how much, that's easy. It's easy stuff. And we did that when we did the first police, the first SRO. There was a debate about, well, how many days a week, how many days in the month. We can figure that stuff out. That's mechanics. I think the real question is, and I'm not trying to be over dramatic, what should be our policy as the town of Wolfeboro to keep the kids safe, period? And if it means one SRO, 2, 4, a child psychologist, come back with a set of proposals, let's look at it, let's get you involved in it, and then let's move forward. That would be the way I would approach it.
Luke?
Thank you, Randy. All excellent comments. And just a couple things. In my college years, I got a master's degree in emergency management and homeland security. So I worked for FEMA for a little over 5.5 years. We run all kinds of drills, all kinds of mock things, and obviously, you know, school settings are one of those things we always worry about. When it comes to the money that was cut out of the budget for the police department, I believe I have to defer to Mr. Coop down there, but I believe, even though that money was cut, I believe the department's looking at a way to still have a resource officer in Carpenter School, and beyond that, you know. The value in that deterrent is so valuable to our community. If it was up to me, I'd have a resource officer in every school in the district. I mean, this district is a wealthy district. We live in an incredible environment. We are blessed to be here, but we have an obligation to protect those that are the youngest and most vulnerable. And I'll defer to Coop on that question because I think that's an important question.
Yeah, Randy, can I chime in on that for a minute?
Sure, I was going to go to the police commission next, but go ahead.
Thanks. So if I could give a brief history on where we've been.
Really quick, because we are
we're
spending too much time. We got to speed things up.
Sure, and where we are now in reference to this issue. So roughly 3 years ago, my fellow commissioners and I got together, like we do every year, and said, you know, where are our vulnerabilities within the town, public safety-wise? You know, and it kept going back to the schools. We see across the country all these nefarious acts that are going on within our schools, and we were really uncomfortable with that. Just what, you know, Luke just talked about, you know, and Paul talked about. We can afford this, and it's the right thing to do. And then, you know, when COVID came along, and post-COVID, you see on the nightly news all these different, you know, school districts that are struggling with the stress the kids are under. That is real. When we look at Mary, who is our school resource officer, does an unbelievable job. We're so lucky to have her. We see her investigations, how much time she's spending in court, and it's unbelievable. Her workload has increased so much since COVID. And you know, not only does she, you know, the kids come up and report things that are going on in the school, they also report to her things that are going on outside the school in their own lives. And it's such a great program. I don't believe there's a better program in this town on any level with more benefits than that. And so what we did 2 years ago, if you remember correctly, right here in this room.
So thank you, Sean. Kathy, do you want to say anything else?
Well, can I have 1 more minute on that?
All right, quick.
Thanks. You know, right here in this room, the commission, my fellow commissioners and I, we put forward a school safety meeting. And we had teachers, stakeholders, students, parents show up to pitch the idea of a second school resource officer. And overwhelmingly, it was in the positive. And we put that forward. And so everybody knows that the school district, which means all the towns that come here for the schools, and that's close to 3,000, you know, people in that. It's like a town down there every day in a small community. If we didn't have the schools district paying that, our officers get dispatched to that school, middle school and high school, for calls. You know, they have to go testify in court multiple times if they have to take someone into custody at an overtime rate. We're paying that here in the town.
Thank you, Sean. Kathy, do you want to weigh in at all?
I just have one sentence. And that is Mary, who everybody speaks of so highly.
That'd be Officer Mary Swift, by the way, for those of you who don't know.
She has a new last name that sounds
Oh,
like
thank
chocolate.
you.
But she's going to be leaving in August. She is our one police officer, our one sworn police officer that is a woman. We're losing her.
Yeah, Randy, one second. It's very important.
So
There's-
I'm going to
there's-
cut, you could
one
bring it
second.
up during your closing remarks. So I'm going to go on to the Selectman. The ambulance contract. Last year, it was roughly $250,000. So therefore, that carried over to the default budget of $250,000. I understand from the deliberative session that the new ambulance contract is $750,000, is tripled. And so an article, I think it's Article 24 or 5, suggests that if the main budget fails, that we should allocate $500,000 to make up that shortfall. So what's your position on the ambulance contract itself, and do you support the warrant article, or would you handle it in the default budget? And why don't we start with you, Jody, go to Paul, Luke, and then Brian.
Okay, when it comes to that the ambulance deal, I think that Stewart's came up with we don't want to do it price when they gave us that price. Now, I know that other ambulance companies I believe that some of the selectmen have gotten estimates on it, and it's high, it's a lot of money. So I would think if we go to the default budget, I think the other article on, having a backup plan in case we go to default budget is a good idea, and I will probably be voting on the yes on that. So we have something to fall back on if we go to default budget.
All right, Brian?
I thought you were going to Paul.
Okay, Paul.
I mean, I'll do it. You want me to do it?
No, but
Okay.
just keep moving it along. Thanks, Paul.
All right, so the ambulance increase is $474,000 exactly. I've talked to 10 communities around the Lakes region. I've talked to 5 ambulance companies to find out what's going on. This is what's happening statewide, nationwide. 70% of all the towns in the state of New Hampshire use either a fire-based ambulance service, or if they're a small town next door, they contract with someone who has a fire-based system. Why are we having this $474,000 increase? Because there is no money. They are getting a very, very poor return on their insurance when you get transported from home to hospital. From hospital to hospital, they make money. So in order for us to not have to pay $1 million in a contract, or $1.2 or $1.4 million, our option is to start our own ambulance service. Now, that being said, if you take our default budget and you look at our default budget and you pull out from the default budget, let me get my numbers so I don't misspeak. If you pull out the property revaluation for $212,000, the ambulance service for $474,000, the street and highway maintenance for $111,000, that's $797,389. The actual difference between the default and operating budget ends up being $274,611. So these are within 0.75% of each other. Okay, so when we don't have to really worry too much about the operating budget. If we do go to default, which is only going to save us $274,000, which in a $34 million budget is not a terrible amount, the warrant article will protect us. But I think that going forward, we also have to look at a fire-based ambulance service. This is not something that's going the other direction where contracts are becoming more popular. It is where the contract service is disappearing.
Paul?
Thank you, Randy. Let's start with basic decisions. Is the town of Wolfeboro going to forego ambulance services in the future? I think the Board of Select people have been very clear. The answer to that is no. That decision has been made. They're going to find a way to pay for it. They'll either pay for it if the default budget triggers the Budman article, or they'll pay for it some other way. I'll let that get all sorted out. The bigger question for me is, what does it take to be an ambulance service provider in this community? And the way I would approach this is I would, if I were sitting in Jim's chair, I'm giving Jim some coaching here, I would raise my hand and say, who two board of selected people want to run point on this project? I don't think it's appropriate to staff it out to someone who's running the fire department. Oh, by the way, put out fires, do your job, and then figure out whether we should be in the ambulance service business as a strategic initiative. I don't think that's the right way to go at it. So I'd put two board of selected people together, as we did in the public safety building. Everything gets out in the open. I would ask our friends at Stewart, if you're getting out of this business, show us the numbers you have for Wolfeboro that demonstrate why you can't seem to make a buck at this thing. It's the way we do things in other parts of my life. If they can't or won't do that, then we have to go buy some research. And I'm not sure the $20,000 in the budget is going to buy it. It's going to get it done. We need to answer a couple of questions about the ambulance service business. Number one is, what does it take to be in the business? How much capital do you need to start it up? How much capital do you need to run it? What do you know about billing and collections? What do you know about uncompensated care? What do you know about Medicaid reimbursement? What do you know about people who just decide they don't want to pay? How do you run a business? And are we better prepared to do that than somebody else? That's really what we should do. And then the question would be, should we do it just for ourselves, or should we think about doing it in concert with other communities? That's a lofty and noble idea. Unfortunately, the town of Pembroke tried that, and it kind of didn't go anywhere because different communities have different priorities. So I'm not sure that would work, but it would be worth asking the question. We know that in the ambulance service business in the state of New Hampshire, if you're an EMT, the turnover rate is 30 to 40%. So every 3 years, you get all brand new EMTs. That's a very expensive proposition. But I get back to the basic question. Are we not going to be in the ambulance service business as the community of Wolfeboro? Yeah, we're going to be in that business. The question is, what is it going to take us versus somebody else to get in the business? And the reason I point out the need to look at that is this will be a very large expense. We just need to know what it's going to take. Because if we don't know what it's going to take, it's like opening the Bombay door and dropping things out. It'll be awful. And it will result in not good service. So I take more of a logical approach, structured approach to figuring that out, and I would get all of you, as we did with public safety, as we did with other things, get all of you in front of the select board and have at it, and be clear, and make those tough decisions. Thank you.
Luke?
I second what everyone else has said in most ways. What got us here too, obviously, it would have been nice to have known 2 years ago that, when we went out for a bid for an ambulance service, we were going to get, we weren't going to get bids that were $900,000 and $1.4 million, and that Stewart's may be bidding again. So when those bids came in, logically, it was, we were forced to look at the whole gambit of, what are we going to do? Stewart's has provided an excellent service to the town of Wolfeboro for many years at $286,000, and so when we go out to bid and we get bids back for $1.4 million, obviously the next logical thing is what are we going to do, how are we going to do it, and the time frame that we were working under was really pushing it. And so the fire chief and town manager Jim Pinio, went out there and started working the numbers. Luckily, Stewart stepped up and said, okay, we will do a short-term contract. We will help you out. This is what it's going to cost to get you through. And what it did is it bought us some time to really look at what we're getting ourselves into and the financial commitment that we're going to be asking the voters to potentially take on. Whether or not the Warren article gets passed or doesn't get passed, the board would assure you that there is no way that there will not be an ambulance service in Wolfeboro. Public safety is the highest. It's the highest and most important thing that the selectmen would never, in a million years, consider that. So I think it's, this bought us some more time to really dive into these numbers and how we're going to staff it, how we're going to run it, and what it's going to cost the town going forward.
All right, just to follow up on that, and we're going to be really quick. We can push this till past 8 o'clock, which is what I'm going to do right now. But back to the 4 selectmen, there's another warrant article that spends $20,000 to evaluate the ambulance service. I had a lot of questions from the audience today that said, what will you do, and what do you want to have consultants do? And one of the people running for selectman asked at the deliberative session that, why should we spend $20,000 of a study on the ambulance service? Why aren't the bright selectmen and the bright town manager handling that? So just yes or no, would you support the $20,000 to have it studied, or do you think the selectmen should do that on their nickel and on their time? Luke?
Yes to the study.
Study.
And yes, we should be doing it on our time, too. Both.
So you hedged.
Yeah. Well,
What did you say?
yes.
He said both.
What was the second?
Yes, we should be doing it, and yes, we should do the study.
We should get professional support on this one. We know how to,
Okay, that was a yes.
we need
Jody?
professional help.
I'm a definite no on this. For the $20,000, I believe, unless I'm wrong, it's just someone to look at whether we should do our own town or...
Okay, so that was a no, so we finally got some distinction between you guys. Brian?
Mine is a delayed yes. I think that Jim Pinio has walked this before. He was in Littleton when they
Okay, so I got
changed
that
it
answer.
over.
I'm not going to go to the school board. So you have a budget, 62 million budget, 61 million default, round numbers. At the deliberative session, before you took the break, because I didn't handle the break after the meeting, but you were 4-3 on the vote, I think, going in for the budget. I don't know how it ended up, but are you in favor of the default budget, or are you in favor of the main budget? Just a yes or no answer on that. And why don't we start with Guy?
I'm not in favor of either one of them.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
He said neither one.
I'm not in favor of either.
Oh, okay, that's clear enough. So, Jack?
Okay, I'm very much in favor of the budget as it's being presented. The vote was 5-4 initially because of a teaching position that was eliminated. But it was 4-3. That's right. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
The end result was a 8-1 vote in
Okay.
favor of the budget.
So, Mary, you must have been one of the 8.
Pardon me?
You were one of the 8-1. You're in favor of the budget.
I am in favor of the budget.
All right, so let's go back to Guy. Why aren't you in favor of either one of them?
I think we're spending money in areas that basically is taking away the responsibility of the parents. And when I look at the strategic plan, I get the perception that the school district is trying to take even more of the parenting role on. I believe that they perceive there's a need for it. I think their efforts should be better in educating the parents and helping them to be better parents rather than just helping the children, because it's putting a Band-Aid on a wound that needs to be addressed.
All right, I'm going to jump back to the selectmen on the Pop Whalen leases. In favor of them, not in favor of them? Give me an answer first, and if I get some distinctions, we'll then go back.
In favor.
Jody?
I'm a no on that, and hopefully I can speak on
Okay,
that.
so if we get some distinction, if you all said yes, I was moving on, so we'll get back to it. Paul?
In favor?
Luke?
In favor.
So Jody, why are you against?
I'm against this because this is a continuation. I could talk for hours on this, but this is a continuation in case nobody
You
knows.
could talk about 90 seconds.
What?
90 seconds.
90 seconds? Start the clock. So this is a continuation on, I like to call the Pop Whalen debacle. This is what you got to realize is that this 40-year lease is gonna raise the money that has already been moved over because the Friends of Pop Whalen could not do their put their money in. They didn't put their money in. The town moved the $2.7 million over, and the Friends of Pop Whalen brought a $2 million check, and now this 40-year lease is just to raise the money to pay back you, the taxpayers, because the money has already been moved over to Pop Whalen to cover the Friends of Pop Whalen not being able to raise and meet their agreement on this. So this is just too long, 40-year lease. It's crazy, and I'm a no on that.
Anybody want to weigh in on why they're a yes? Okay, Paul? Quickly.
I can't figure out why the Pop Whalen and the public safety building all showed up at the same time. I'm still scratching my head about how that landed, because that created a pretty large bond issue. Having said that, did we need to replace the Pop Whalen? Yes. Did the Friends of Pop Whalen come forward and say, we'll give you $2.7 million? I think that was the number. Yes. Was it written in a contract that that would be in fiscal year 2023? Yes. Did they miss the last, I think it's 600,000? Yes. Did they come to the Board of Selectmen last summer and say, we're going to miss, but we're still good for it? Yes. Did my colleague here, student body left, ask a very, very important question, what's that going to do to our cash situation? And the answer was, we're okay. That was probably not an accurate answer. It wasn't meant to deceive, but it wasn't necessarily the most accurate answer he could have gotten. That's okay. Is the leasing of it's actually a right to use, is the right to use, put your name on a locker room for some period of time, something that is done in the charitable and fundraising world? Yes. Did the Board of Select people give them the ability to do naming rights? Yes.
Are you all done? Yes.
So I'd say it's done.
No, but I got to cut you off because we don't have enough time, but I thought I'd jump on that. For the police commissioners, Article 25 says we should abolish the police commission. I presume you were both against that article.
I am against it, yes.
I am against it.
Any of the selectmen in favor of it? Do you want to take over the responsibility of managing the police? So you're all in favor of keeping the police commission then?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You should poll us.
Yes.
So I'm just going to click through some questions. So this is a question from the audience for the selectmen. If you're elected to the selectman position, what would your position be on enforcing planning and zoning regulations and any violations of these? So I think they're, well, I don't know what they're driving at, but what's your position on enforcing planning and zoning regulations and violations? You take a strict approach, lax approach? Paul?
It's a broad question, but the planning board is responsible for private land. Select board shouldn't be sticking their fingers into that stuff. Public property, town roads, things like that, the select board has a responsibility to ensure that things are enforced, things are properly managed. So the question's a little broad, so I'll narrow it down and say, should the select board be involved in making sure that if there's a code violation on public property? Yeah, they should. But not on private land. That's for the planning board and the zoning board and the code enforcement officer to deal with. Don't want to mix those two things up.
Anybody else want to weigh in on that?
He's 100% correct with that. You know, those three groups that need to have that autonomy to be able to act and to, you know, that their decisions are not going to be overturned by another board.
All right, another question from the audience for the school board. What qualifies you as an advocate for our students' needs for both knowledge and practical skills that will prepare them for life beyond school? And why don't we start with Mary on that?
Could you say that again?
Sure.
I didn't hear the end of it well.
It's quite broad, but what qualifies you as an advocate for our students' needs for both knowledge and practical skills that will prepare them for life beyond school?
I love that question because I could say, well, I taught for 30 years. I have this kind of degree. I have that kind of degree. The focus has always been on what are your affinities, what are your strengths, what are your curiosities, what are your questions. So what qualifies me is my life experience, what qualifies me is my family, who informs me greatly, and also a student I had once, had no idea I'd be talking about him, but I tried desperately to get him into the gifted, whatever, talented program. He was so bright, he was so innovative, so creative, so clever, very MacGyver, but his desk was a mess. He didn't know where anything was. He would forget to eat, and those kind of things. And I remember, so tried to get him into the program, and the teacher then said, Mary, he's really not going to do well because we read books and they're great, and we ask a lot of questions and we write a lot of papers. So she said it would do him injustice. Well, it bothered me greatly, and then one day, and his name was Peter, coincidentally, next as my brother, and one day he said, "Miss Schiller, can I bring a steam engine to school?" So I said, "Sure." So he brought a steam engine to school that he had built, and yeah, it's a kit, but it wasn't, and no offense to the books and the reading and the writing, and the kids just thought he was just an unusual kid, and they didn't think badly about him, but never really saw his gifts. And he fired up that steam engine, and he chugged down the middle of the room, and it changed everybody's perspective on it. So what qualifies me is my perspective, my life experience, but also my family. Of us 6 kids, 2 of us, our family, got about to high school, and they were like, I just can't, I don't match up with this anymore. They went to the tech school, got their GED as it was at a time. Peter, who's passed away, became a master electrician. My sister Ruthie owns her own business. So paying attention to all the many varied and unusual ways that children come to us, and to respect their affinities and to respond to their affinities. And I'm going to tie that into the school strategic plan. That's a good plan.
All right, Jack?
That's a really difficult question because I think being a lifelong learner is one of the goals that I've always thought about, and it's taken me 30 years on the school board to know that education never stops. I don't know everything. I'll never know everything. But I think sitting on the school board, working with the administration, working with the teachers, working with all the different programs that come down from Concord and from the Department of Ed, all the different changes that have happened over the years, I think we have to be there for the students. The students are always number one. That's our goal, to make the education process as good as we can. I'm not an expert. I'll never be an expert, but I'm a lifelong learner, and hopefully our students will be lifelong learners as well.
And Guy?
Well, I've raised a son and 2 stepdaughters, all 3 of which are extremely and hugely successful. I attribute a lot of that to the proper application of discipline as a verb, with the result of having very disciplined children as a noun or an adjective. I didn't have to use excessive force or anything. I think my own self-discipline would allow me to look at a situation and not make a hasty decision without trying to get all the information possible and then trying to weigh the pros and cons of moving forward with whatever the board might come up with. And that's what I think qualifies me.
So on to the selectmen, another question from the audience. What are your intentions regarding the Libby Museum? And Luke, why don't we start with you?
I think the voters spoke pretty clearly in the last election, and unfortunately, the project that we had looked at and brought forward to the voters was voted down. It got 56% of the vote. It fell short of getting passed. There's a capital reserve account that we have somewhere around $313,000 in, along with a fund that's associated with that. We had a firm on the Huck Bergeron services that had done some reports there in the past. They were slated to hopefully look at the Libby again this past fall. Their schedule became too busy and they had other commitments. So we're in search of finding another contractor to go in there and to give us a better explanation based on the money that we do have and the repairs that can be done with those funds, and outline those in a document that'll be like a punch list document for a construction worker. So we can tackle things, but we also want to do things that are going to be redundant going forward. So that's kind of where we're at moving forward.
Paul?
I was the chairperson of the Libby trustees, if that was the right term, when I was on the select board. It was my last official year. One We parked $300,000 on that facility in 2018. Probably should spend some money on it. I think we missed an opportunity. And it's not meant to find fault, but it's meant to just point out what I think we need to be really good at. We missed an opportunity. We had people who wanted to come forward and raise some money and take over the Libby, and I remember having conversations with them about, well, could we somehow, someday find a way to have you run it forever? And it fell by the wayside. And I consider that, for me, at least a personal failing. I should have probably stepped up the energy on that before I left, because I think we almost got there. At the end of the day, the Libby is on our books. We have a responsibility to maintain it. We have a responsibility to make sure it's clean. We have a responsibility to make sure it runs. But we also have to make sure that it doesn't get all gummed up because other priorities get in the way, which they will do, and they do. So we need to focus on what do we do with the Libby? But what we shouldn't do is let it sit there and rot, break. So I think we're going to have to spend some money on it. But I think there's $300,000 in the capital reserve to kind of do that.
Jody?
I voted against that. That project started at, I believe it was around $2 million, and I thought it didn't pass, or it didn't come to light at $2 million, and then it morphed to a $4 million project with an addition on the back and all this stuff, and I have an idea of getting some better revenue from that property, and my idea would be to open up. I'm in a bass club. We go out 16 boats on a Saturday. We go and have to pay for launches all over New Hampshire, town-owned, privately owned. Why couldn't we open that up and get some more parking? And once the word got out, your Saturdays and Sundays from the bass clubs, that there's so many of them, you would have more revenue on Saturday and Sunday for the summer months than you could ever have with the museum open, and you could put all that money towards the museum. That was
Brian?
I don't talk. So when this whole project started, I went to the Attorney General's Trust Division and had them send a representative to discuss with us how Wolfeboro can run a museum. They told us how difficult it was. I called the Yale Peabody Museum and asked them, because they were doing a complete renovation of the museum, how do select board members be trustees of a museum? How do we run a museum? They told us, both of them, it was very, very difficult. The museum had 54 or 57% of a yes vote. Wasn't enough to trigger the bond, but it shows that there is a majority of people in the town that like the Libby Museum. However, having the town being in charge of running a museum is extraordinarily difficult. I would like to find a partner, maybe Lakes Region Conservation Trust, maybe a consortium of nonprofits in the Lakes region to assist Wolfeboro or to use the museum as it's been used and to expand it into environmental programs, into educational programs for children, to other things. This can have a successful ending. When the Warren article didn't pass and the $4 million project didn't occur, I actually went to some of the members of the Friends of Libby and said, can we build a $3 million museum, please? Because you have donors, you have money, let's see if we can put this together. They said that they only could guarantee their donors to use their money for a $4 million museum, and that went away. I would have loved to see the Libby renovated as a $3 million museum, and I think it could have happened. So hopefully we can use the money we have, keep it working as the wonderful place it is, and find a way for the town of Wolfeboro to get some assistance and keep it running going forward without it costing the taxpayers money.
All right, so there's another question, and it deals with the surplus at the end of the year, if there is any. I know for the school board, Article 4, the turf, says that if there's any extra money, it can be taken out to do the turf. So the question is, if there is surplus money, do you want it to go back to the taxpayers, or do you want it to keep it? So, Luke, you want to keep it, or have it go back to the taxpayers?
Back to the taxpayers.
Back to the taxpayers. Paul?
Ditto.
Jody? Jody?
No.
No?
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Does the money go back to the taxpayers? Is there any surplus at the end of the year? Do you want it to go back to the taxpayers?
Oh, yes, yes.
Brian? Yes. School board? Mary?
I'd have to think about that.
Well, while you're thinking, Jack?
Yes, and I just want to, if I can just clarify really, really quickly, the state does allow school districts to keep 2.5% of their budget as a reserve if they need to. We took a vote years ago that we would not keep any of that money. The $60,000 is for the turf field. There's also a warrant article for $150,000 for a capital reserve fund for maintenance. Those come out of the year-end reserves. All the rest of the money goes back to the taxpayers, and we made that vote several years ago that all the excess money goes back to the taxpayers.
Guy?
Give it back to the taxpayers.
Now, Mary, now that you've been noodling on it,
I remember the discussion about this, and I understand that it's not like money that gets put in people's pockets, correct?
Yeah, it reduces the taxes the following year.
correct.
And that's a good thing.
All right, so another question for the selectmen was brought up at the deliberative session that we were using some of our capital reserve funds as checkbooks, and that we weren't letting these funds build up, that we were taking money out, I'll just say prematurely was, I think, the implication. Do you think that we're properly managing our capital reserve funds, and are we using them as checkbooks? And Paul, why don't we start with you and go to Jody?
Yeah, I was a little confused with the question, but I agree with the principle that says if you say you want to accrue money so that you can buy a new Rasenfratz, then you accrue money to buy a new Rasenfratz. If you haven't have a specific target as to what you're doing, then you effectively have a checkbook function. And I'm not sure that's what you want to do. But so that would be a policy decision that I think we'd want to get our arms around.
Jody?
Yeah, I think doing the capital reserve funds is a good way to raise money and offset having to bond as much for certain projects. But I'm really not open to seeing that being an open checkbook for taking out for other things other than what it's been set up for.
Ryan?
So I think we're having a semantics or a title issue. When we did a capital reserve fund for the ladder truck, the bucket truck for the fire department, it worked exactly as it should. There was money going in every year, and after 10 years, we had enough money to pay for the bulk of the truck, almost all of it. Now, when we have a capital reserve fund for sidewalk maintenance, then what happens is sidewalk maintenance gets done, and we have money available, and it builds. But if we start taking and having a capital reserve fund that gets $400 put in and $375 drawn out, and then $350 put in and $340 drawn out, is it really a capital reserve fund, or is it just being drawn down every year? So that means you either have to appropriate more money for it so that there always is a reserve in it, or it's a revolving fund. It's not an open checkbook, but it's a revolving fund. And so I think we just have to look at the way we word the different funds.
So I'm getting waved here that we're well past 8 o'clock, and I didn't give any of you time to summarize, so I'll give you each 1 minute. And we started at this end, so why don't we start at this end and, pick one issue that you want to draw some distinction between you and the other candidates so that people will vote for you.
I'm not sure that it would be any different than the other candidates. I would just like to be able to try to help to reestablish the trust in the whole school system between the parents and the system itself. And in closing, I would like to say, God bless America. We don't deserve it, but we sure as hell need it. Thank you.
Jack?
Yeah, I just want to thank you for having us tonight, and I encourage you to go out and vote next Tuesday is it next Tuesday? No, the Tuesday after, on the 12th, for the budget and the warrant articles that are on the school district, and I encourage you to vote for me as well. Thank you.
And I would like to close saying that, and I'm an elementary school teacher primarily, so it's always about the children. We're all in this room discussing really important things, but it's all about the kids coming up. And with the budget, you can trace any little item all the way down, and it's because of the children. Every penny can be traced down to the children, and it's not necessarily yours, but your neighbors, and where those kids are going to go. So yes, it's windows and turf and all these things. It's moldy carpet that needs to be replaced, and it's falling down playground fences. But these aren't numbers. They're names, and they have faces, and that's why we're here.
Catherine?
I think we are being penny wise and pound foolish. We have a magnificent infrastructure in this town. It seems like we've got everything, the school, the hospital, the library, the new police addition, but we didn't have a policeman at the Carpenter School when they got out the other day. I think it's time we start investing in our people. We need to stop targeting teens as our #1 target. We need to give women a voice so we stop having women murdered in our area. We need to concentrate on some of the smaller things like the ambulance services, the body cams.
You like my hair?
We need a female perspective, and if we're losing our one female officer, that really scares me, because I don't think, there are many things that women can do as well or better, just being women. And the police are stewards for the community, and this position should be based on the laws, common sense, and a love for the community. And I can be that person. And I ask you to please vote for me in the upcoming election on March 12th.
Thank you, Catherine. So Sean, here's your extra time.
Thanks. I'd like to thank everyone for being here and taking the time. I really appreciate that. First and foremost, I'd like to remind everyone that, I do have the necessary training and experience to hold this position. I take it very seriously. And more importantly, I'd like you to know that I'm an honest person, I'm a trustworthy person, I'm well vetted, been subjected to numerous background checks, polygraph exams, as well as being vetted for a secret clearance at the federal level. But I can make you this guarantee that, every decision that I make, every public safety decision I make on behalf of your family, I'm almost also making on behalf of mine. And I take that really seriously. That's your guarantee. My family is the same as your family. The effect is the same. Thanks.
Brian?
So I wanted to thank everybody for coming out and hope that over the last 3 years I've earned your vote for the next 3 years. And I wanted to tell you a quick little story. My biggest problem is I can't say no to helping anybody when they ask. And I had a woman at the Harvest Market come to me and say, 109A is a horrible road, it needs to be fixed. I said, I've called the state 3 different times. I said, do me a favor, go on to the town website, get my email address, send me an email with your contact information. I sent to her a copy of the state and federal DOT maintenance department, all their contact information, and our District 3. She went online to the Wolfeboro community page under my instruction, and she put all that information public. People from our community started calling and emailing District 3 and the federal state office. Amazing. All of a sudden, people started posting their responses from District 3 and from the federal state office. Now, what transpired from this? We got the information. We now found out that 109A is going to be repaved this year. So it's going to be done. So there's transparency, there's information. And the unusual thing about this is not even my job. It's a state road. But I have responsibility to that citizen that came to me regardless. I could have just said, state road, sorry. But that's not what I do. And that's not what anybody on this board should do. We're here for every citizen regardless. And if you can't make time for them, then don't be a select person.
Thank you, Brian. Jody?
Yeah, I hope you can give me your vote. I would like to try to bring a lot more truth and transparency to this town. and the select board. The selectmen and select boards over the years have made a lot of good decisions and have worked a lot of hard, on things really hard. But I can tell you, if you just want to look, you've seen some real bad decisions be made. I think this town needs to be tightened up financially and morally. So that's something I would like to see, and hopefully you can vote for me. Thanks.
And Paul?
Thanks, Timothy, and Wolfeboro Community TV again. I absolutely loved being a member of the Board of Selectmen. I learned from a person by the name of Dave Bowers. He used to use a word, and I've said this 100 times. He used to say, we work well when we work in harness, when we work together. Tomorrow, hopefully, the Granite State News I wrote something that maybe will talk about my approach and some of the things I've done, at least the things I think I'm proud of. My principles are really simple, is know what your job is. Have trust in the people who work in the organization. Get out of their way. Show up to meetings prepared. Be a resource. And I think one of the things that the select board that I worked with was a great resource to the town manager. I mean, knowledge. That guy at the back knows roads better than probably many of us will ever know. Be relevant. Relevancy is really important. If you're not relevant, then whether you serve on a committee or not, if you're not relevant, you're probably just occupying space. You got to work on the important stuff. The really important stuff, the stuff that costs a lot of money, that has a lot of impact on the town. You got to work on that stuff collaboratively. You can't showboat it. You got to work on it as a team. Don't play winners and losers. There's no winners and losers here. If you come out of a conflict and you win and somebody else lose, that's it. You're not going to collaborate much in the future. I also believe, since we talked a little bit about pop oil, and there's a thing that's called don't check from behind. I hate it. Boarding is a felony. You shouldn't do it. And we shouldn't do gotcha management. And I'm not suggesting we do that, but sometimes it creeps into our narrative, and I see it in some of the things we do. And last, and most importantly, is focus on getting results. Results that actually cost less money for you. Thank you.
Luke?
Thank you to Wolfeboro Community TV, too. I thought we did it for the late nights and the big paycheck.
We did.
And there are a lot of late nights. And, it's funny, last week before I was going to a meeting, and the kids say it, I have two stepkids, they're 8 and 10, and their natural go-to line is when I'm like, you go into another meeting at the Great Hall, and I'm like, yeah. It's, in the 2 terms that I've served, broken up by 3 years in between when I was on the zoning board as well, it has been an honor and a privilege to serve the town of Wolfeboro and the community. It's something that I always wanted to do. I didn't know at what capacity I would do it. And everyone that sits up here, I mean, the amount of time and energy and effort and the late nights and the long meetings and the budget seasons, and, it's all about a dedication to, whatever your view is, trying to make something better. And that's what I've done. And, we've made some tough choices. We've had some good times, some laughs, and, some hard decisions to make along the way. And I try to do it with, I try to view things, from a perspective where I take myself out of it. I look from it from the point of view of Wolfeboro. I grew up here. I went to school here. I went to Kingswood. I went to UNH, and then I moved on. And I came back. And I came back here because of the values and the people that live here. And that's what I wanted to return to. And I love it. I love every day here. So I appreciate your support in the past, and I'm asking for your vote again. Thank you.
All right, thank you all, ladies and gentlemen. I had a number of questions from the audience, which I'm sorry I couldn't get to all of them. They were very much appreciated. Everyone does have a different perspective. And maybe next time, if I could get them a little earlier, that would be helpful. If I'm the moderator, and if I'm not the moderator, whoever is, I try to get questions to them sooner than later. And for you candidates, thank you very much. I thought all of you did a wonderful job. You all deserve our appreciation for even considering running and serving the community. We should all give you a round of applause. Thank you very much. We're adjourned.
Those were the only two.